development teams. He then returned to London in 2000 and came back to Jaffna, because in 2015 he decided to settle back in Jaffna, where he is now supporting entrepreneurs and economic development initiatives. He's also built a very interesting building, actually, quite near the university. So Jekhan, please go ahead. Please start your talk, and it's entitled "Building a Resilient, Balanced Tech Community in Northern Sri Lanka." Please go ahead, Jekhan.
Okay, thank you, Renuka, for the introduction. I think that the first thing I will do is explain why I have a right to, or why I have an insight to make the comments that I'm going to make in this talk. I just want to quickly put my timer on so I don't overrun and get into trouble. So as Renuka says, I spent most of my life in the UK, but having entered the IT industry, I've taken IT development operations from basic level to international standards in 2 territories. One was in Colombo, where I was working for this British company in the 1990s, and this was a time when the Sri Lankan IT industry was growing up from being toddlers into becoming a serious industry. And then after I went back to the UK in 2000, I joined a company, and I was responsible for getting their operation. They were outsourcing to a company in Gurgaon, which is near Delhi. Now, when I went to Gurgaon in 2000, the place was, there was nothing there. There were bare land and a couple of fancy buildings being put up. If you go now, it is spectacular. If you go to Gurgaon now, it is a spectacular place. Even 10 years ago, it was a spectacular place. And I think that it's the technology industry that had a lot to do with that. So my comments come out of this experience. Now, what I would say is that, we've been waiting a long time for the Jaffna IT scene to take off. And quite frankly, we're still waiting. We have a very small group of companies who are engaging in product development, engaging in mature software development. As Sayandan says, we have a larger number of startups who are in a very precarious situation. But in Jaffna now we have a small number like Kale Systems, which was founded by someone who fled the war as a boy, went to California, built his career there, became senior in one of the top IT companies over there. He came back, he set up Kale Systems, which is on Main Street near St. John's, which is doing point-of-sale systems. We also, as Sayandan said, have a company like Arogia, which came out of Yargeet Challenge, and they're doing hospital systems. But these are too few. I think we can hardly say that we've had a great deal of success building a powerful northern IT industry. We need to understand that we've been waiting 10 years. And as Einstein may have said, many people say he didn't actually say this, but to do the same thing again and again and expect a different result is insanity. We are clearly not doing something right. Jaffna Tamil IT professionals can be found plentifully across the world, except in Jaffna, except in the Northern Province. And we need to think why that is. But we can claim some success, significant success, training IT professionals. But the IT professionals we train, a lot of them, like pouring water into a bucket with holes, go to where the opportunity is. The opportunity is in Colombo, and the opportunity is overseas. Even some of the startups that came here, like SenseMate, which is doing extremely well. These are some brilliant guys. Again, Simon can take some credit, coming out of the Argeek Challenge, are now in Colombo. They have no presence here. When I met them, talked to them, one of the things I do is write articles. I spoke to them about 1 or 2 years ago, and they said they had a plan to set up an operation in Jaffna, but sadly they haven't. We need more than IT training classes. We need world-class companies to come to the north delivering software and services. If we want to build an industry in the north, we need this. Entrepreneurial startups are good, but they don't build an IT industry. So the question is, with all the advantages that we have, why hasn't it already happened? But the 1983 riots, tragic and appalling as they were, had a positive side. They sent our young people and people of all ages, but young people went overseas in 1983, and many of them started excellent, outstanding careers. They are now in senior leading decision-making positions in software and services companies around the world. They're in companies that buy software and services. They're the customers of these software and services companies. And they have networks because the Sri Lankans integrate very successfully wherever they go. They have networks extending into the local communities. So, for example, outside the software sector, a friend of mine set up a company, Sakti Agro, near Yakachi, near Elephant Pass, and he brought in more than $1 million of investment. He's making cocoa peat, so it's an agricultural venture. He's brought in over $1 million from what we would call foreigners, so local Americans, and he's now exporting back to the United States. So the question is, well, why hasn't it happened already? And we need to understand that although we have this unique selling point, which is our economically powerful diaspora, time is running out with them. But the people who left in the 80s, who were in their teens and their 20s, are now in the peaks of their careers. They're in their 50s. They're at senior positions in companies around the world. But these people are now moving into retirement. They're moving into their 60s. They're looking forward to grandchildren. They're looking forward to golf. In a few years, this window of opportunity will close. Our children, my own son, is not interested in Jaffna except to come back once every 2 years. When he came back last year, he found the place rather dull. He has a lovely English girlfriend, and as far as he's concerned, he's an Englishman. So unless we use this window of opportunity for people who think back fondly of their time in Jaffna and in the northern province, in Kilinochie, in Vavanya, in Mannar, and Mullaitivu, that powerful diaspora will evaporate. Another disaster that's created a huge opportunity for us is COVID-19, where working from home and remote working is now considered normal. Back in the 90s, when we first started doing some working from home when I was in London, it was always treated with suspicion. Are the people actually working? Are they skiving, having a nap, going shopping? But now people have found, because they've been forced to do it, that the staff working from home are productive. They're producing quality work, and they're producing it according to schedules. So because of this, processes and procedures have been created, because they've had to be created to run remote development. delivery of service with your staff not in your office. Companies are seeing the cost benefits of not having expensive offices. People I know who are landlords in Colombo are wailing and gnashing their teeth because people are reducing the amount of space they're renting. And companies know this isn't a one-off. Companies know that this is going to happen again. There will be pandemics again. So they'll be forced back into working from home. So pandemics and COVID-19 have created a huge opportunity for people in crazy places like Jaffna that are difficult to get to. That, you know, the only reason people come to Jaffna is because they have some elderly aunt still alive and kicking up here. Working from home, there has to be treated from caution. We shouldn't say that now companies are used to working remotely. That's great. We can put all our inexperienced programmers in their bedrooms, give them an internet dongle, and let them go for it. Working from home is great for experienced developers, but it's not great for inexperienced and trainee staff, because these inexperienced trainee staff, whether they're in Jaffna or in London, they need to learn how to work culturally. They need to learn technology from the person who sits next to them. When I entered the IT industry with a degree in physics, I learnt RPG programming, which probably only the old folk here will have even heard of, from a middle-aged man who sat next to me. We had some training courses, but I actually learnt on the job. They need to work in a community so that they learn the right attitude. You know, they learn that you work as long as you have to. They learn that 75% correct is totally unacceptable. They learn discipline to produce test plans and to document properly. So, from my own experience in the early 90s, so I was in Colombo from 93 until 2000. You know, I was in Colombo before Millennium IT, which is now the London Stock Exchange Group, before Virtuso, before IFS Sri Lanka, which is now one of the big employers in Colombo. I remember when IFS Sri Lanka occupied a small office next to Kolpiti police station. The reason that my company, the company that I used to work for, the managing director of that company who recruited me, told me why he came to Sri Lanka. He didn't come because there were plentiful, experienced software development talent in Colombo. He came because he had a friend who he was drinking cocktails with, according to Kevin, in Singapore. And his friend Mohan said, "Why did you come to Colombo?" And Kevin, who was a gruff Brummy, the chap from Birmingham, over cocktails, said, "Why not?" And so he started outsourcing a small team to Mohan's company. And I was sent initially to manage those teams. But over the years, we did well. Within 2 years, the company that I was working for decided to set up its own operation. So we bought the staff from Mohan's company, we paid him for them, we took them over, and we opened our own office. Now, I can tell you, in the early 1990s, Colombo was like Jaffna is today. I used to live on Duplication Road, just opposite Liberty Plaza. At 9 o'clock in the evening in Duplication Road, there was nothing there except the dogs. So if I was walking to the Curry Corner, which used to be on Duplication Road, if I was coming back, I could walk in the middle of the road, accompanied only by the stray dogs. I can do that now. If I walk back from Jetwings to my home, it's just me and the dogs. In Colombo then, there were very few experienced staff at any level, programmers, team leaders, at any level, as it is in Jaffna now. When I was in Colombo, I used to receive hundreds of CVs with nothing more than DBase and Clipper. At the time, I didn't even know what DBase and Clipper was. It's a very basic database application builder. And in those days, the software industry in Colombo was based around little companies building the accounting software for little shops. In those days, no one had, in the local software industry, when I say no, very few people had formal processes, formal testing, formal documentation. All of these things we picked up with a little bit of training and a lot of on-the-job learning. When I entered the software industry, when I took my degree, there was no computer science degree. It didn't exist at the university I was at. People were entering the software industry with, me with physics, with French, German, Latin. Because in this industry, a lot of the technology is taught on the job, is taught by the employers. Apart from the technical knowledge, perhaps the great problem is cultural and attitude issues. It was true in Colombo then, and it's true in Jaffna now. If we look at the quality and care, I'm not talking about software here, because there is no significant software industry here. I'm talking about everything else. I'm talking about the work that is done when a building is put up, the quality of the electricians, the plumbers, the sloppy, careless work. Another issue that we had in the 90s, which had to be sorted out, is communications. In Colombo in those days, in the IT industry, nobody liked to ask for help. Nobody liked to give you bad news. Nobody liked to say that they didn't understand something. So when we started, what that meant is that a project would run, everybody would be happy, and then it would be a disaster. So we changed the culture in our teams so that if someone wasn't sure of something, they said so, and they asked for help. And if something was going wrong, they said so. So these are things that need to be sorted out. They were sorted out extremely successfully in Colombo. They need to be culturally changed in a place like Jaffna. I know I'm running over, so I'll speed it up a bit. So how do we do it in the north? We need to start development teams in the north, but we need to heavily load them with experienced staff from Colombo or from Australia or from London, which is what we did in the 90s. We brought team leaders, we brought programmers from England, and we sat them with our teams in Colombo. We need to put them in an attractive office so that their parents will admire them, their school friends will admire them. When I was in Colombo, a number of times, one of our staff would wander in with a couple of strangers, and I'd ask what was going on, and they said, well, these are people who want to see how these guys are working, because they're wondering whether they want to marry their daughters to them or their sons to them.
Jekhan, could you stop in a minute or so? If you don't mind.
I will stop in 2 minutes. I'll stop in 2 minutes. And we must pay them properly, but that isn't enough. You have to build a community. What that means is you need several companies in Jaffna, so that I would change jobs every 3 years when I started my career. So when someone has spent 3 years, we don't want them to go to Colombo. We want them to go to another company in Jaffna. So we need a bunch of companies. In Colombo, there are plenty of workshops, there are plenty of speakers, mentors. There's a community where developers can talk to each other. And there must be fun and leisure. If you're going to earn 100,000 rupees a month, you need to be able to spend it. If you're a young guy or a young girl with 100,000 rupees in your pocket and you're in Jaffna, there's nothing to do. I know that. My credit card bills when I'm in Jaffna are teensy. When I go into Colombo, they're enormous. Why? Because I can't find things to do here. So, my last slide, Renuka. the people of the North need the IT industry for more than just jobs and money. One chronic problem in the North is that we have very low expectations. We have low expectations of ourselves. We have low expectations of our communities. We have low expectations of our suppliers. And quite frankly, the diaspora has a low expectation of what we can achieve. By bringing an industry like the IT industry, we can bring with that culture aspiration, so we know that we can reach for something better, attitude that's constructive and positive, discipline that brings high quality, that keeps promises. If you say you're going to do something in the IT industry, you better bloody do it. And belief that hard work brings rewards, brings self-fulfillment, brings promotion, brings appreciation, and brings money. And that, my friends, is the end of the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jekhan, for sort of asking us to confront a lot of the things that, from the issues and so on, and being honest about some things and giving us the other side of it.